Welcome to another episode of Responsible AI in Action. I'm your host, Charles Dimov, CMO of Gamma AI, the leader in responsible AI technology. With me today is Craig Poulton. Craig is the CEO and founder of SmartDeskCRM, a Canadian marketing automation and CRM developer. Craig works at the intersection of AI, enterprise systems, and practical business transformation. Today, we're going to talk about where AI is truly delivering value in the marketing space, where it's a little bit overhyped, and how organizations can protect brand trust. We're also going to talk about responsible AI and what that looks like as systems evolve from content support into the workflow execution. I am super excited to get started because marketing is one of my favorite things. So welcome, Craig.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. Craig, let's start again with marketing, my favorite topic. There's a lot of excitement happening out there in the market about AI right now. And two things kind of come to my mind. The first question is, where is AI in marketing genuinely helpful today? So where's it actually helping? And the second part is, where's it being overhyped? What's your opinion?
Well, it's been helpful to a lot of marketing agencies and companies for a lot of reasons. There's no more getting roadblocked on an idea. You can't get stuck anymore, and you can't use the excuse that you're stuck because AI is an absolutely incredible tool to get ideas into the mix. Where it's overused is when you rely on it completely to come up with ideas without input. So where I think AI has been fantastic is to get new ideas, to get quick answers. So let's say you're doing a marketing campaign and you're contemplating whether you want to do Google ads or LinkedIn ads. You'd have to do maybe a lot of reading in different blogs, listen to different testimonials, and a considerable amount of research to really get a perspective of which one is better for you. Well, guess what you can do nowadays, and I use this as a reference because I did this exact query myself just recently, contemplating Google ads versus LinkedIn. And it gave me a very good answer. It said, for your target demographic, LinkedIn is going to cost you less and deliver a more focused message to your key demographic. Okay. And it gave me all the reasons why. And I read that. And that took me about 5 minutes to get what I felt was a deep level of understanding. And I know I've done these kind of inquiries before, and I would read blogs, I would read testimonials, and I'd have to stop and do a little bit of thinking on it myself. And then ultimately what you would end up doing is a little bit of A/B testing to see which ones would work. Now, obviously, it's still a very good idea to do that, even though the AI gave you the recommendation. But, AI is backing up a lot of the answers it gives you with its incredible levels of deep research that it's done in order to feed you that information. So, it's an incredible tool to kind of steer you in the right direction and work out a very sophisticated marketing plan in a very short period of time to tools that are available today.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I like actually your comments about that we shouldn't rely on it completely. So in other words, in fact, that very much marries well with another episode that I had recorded with a professor. And this fellow had basically, he kind of said, the important thing to learn is how to use AI and not to take your brain out of your head and kind of put it on a shelf and say, outsource all of your thinking. So I like that because frankly, the reality is, that does involve humans in the loop. And that's pretty important because, humans bring value to the table here. The other thing also that I kind of like, again, is you're absolutely right. It is a fantastic tool for new ideas. Or let me put it this way. I still think that, humans, you've got to be the initiator, right? And we've got to kind of take that initiative, think of that core idea saying, hey, we should do this. And then you start doing a little bit of brainstorming. The thing that I like about, LLM AI technology is that then I can say, here are the ideas I came up with. Did I miss anything? Are there any other dimensions that I should think about? And then you get a bunch more and you kind of look and say, well, mostly that's kind of a repeat of what I already said. However, I like point number 6 and point number 9. Excellent. Those are things I hadn't thought about. So I think it really augments us in the marketing space at the very least.
It does, absolutely. And you reference it being like a tool, and that's what it is. It might be more in the future, maybe sooner than we think. But right now, it's a tool.
Could be.
You got to look at it and say, okay, you know what? You give this tool to a talented person, you're going to get more out of it. And I'd say talented and experienced, because you can draw on a lot of experience to get more out of AI, right? It's like you give Wayne Gretzky a hockey stick and you give Marty McSorley a hockey stick. Okay.
Yeah.
It's the same tool. They both use it very differently. Gretzky puts whatever 800 and something goals in his career, and Marty McSorley ends his career by slapping somebody in the head with his stick, right? I mean, two very different uses of the same tool, but
Yeah.
it is, it's a very good analogy because it can get you in that much trouble, right? Or it can
Yes.
make you that much of a star. It really, really can at this stage.
Yeah, that is a good analogy. I like
Yeah,
that actually.
I
That's
mean,
awesome. All right. So my next question to you, as more organizations kind of start using AI to generate customer facing content, for example, how should marketing leaders actually think about protecting their brand? Because with
yeah,
brand, that means brand trust, the accuracy that the system provides you, the
yeah.
consistency, and from another perspective, what do we need to do as marketers in this respect? How do we make sure that this is reflecting
Yeah.
our brand properly?
Yeah, at the foundation, you have to have a good brand guideline. And a good brand
Mm-hmm.
guideline is not just a document that
Mm-hmm.
says what your colors and your logo is. It's what your messaging is, and your tone, like a lot of things. What's the feeling you want your customers to have? Okay. That has to be your Bible because we all know what
Yeah.
AI will do when you ask it to create a LinkedIn ad for you or a Google ad campaign or a video even, right? It will come
Yeah.
up with its own style and reference, even if you feed
Yeah.
it the brand guideline. So
Yeah.
I had this experience where, I was working with a not-for-profit and they wanted to offer some of their services. So I let them kind of create some LinkedIn content for me. And at the time I was creating it and I was using the same font. And of course it's coming from me. So it had my signature, my look, which I perceived to be our brand guide. But the moment I gave it to someone else to do, and AI is the same as a different group of people, it'll come back with its
Yeah.
own ideas. And you can be, because it's quick and it's efficient, let's just use it. Let's just put something up there. And you're slowly
Yeah.
starting to, deviate from your brand
Erode and
guidelines.
stuff. Yeah.
And it could do a lot of damage when you look back at 6 months of campaigns and your fonts are different and the faces are
Yes.
different and there's not that theme that you were putting into your own work. So once again, it's a tool. You have to kind of break it down into layers and use the layers that you want and still have the tools, the old school tools, to put it together so it delivers your message. The complete reliant on 100% output of a source document straight from AI, even if it's content for a blog, right? I know when I
Mhm.
write, I have a tone. I have a bit of a whimsical
Yes.
style. It's just, it's the way that I approach things. Of course,
Yeah.
AI is not going to, represent my sense of humor and my, wittiness that I think that I have when I put it
Hmm.
into those
Hmm.
blogs. But if that's what was getting people interested, the moment you can
Yeah.
push out a blog in 45 seconds and
Yeah.
you read it and it sounds good, is it
Yeah.
really that, that message? So the authenticity, who we are as individuals, as a company, can get lost in the speed and scale in which AI can deliver solutions for organizations and people, especially looking to impress based on speed. And I think we got to take a little bit of a pause and say, okay, the fact that I can put out a really sophisticated campaign in a day doesn't mean I should.
That's a really important point that you make there, and I love that because that is a difficult topic, the authenticity piece, and I love the fact that you're kind of bringing in that balancing act. That's basically what it is to say, is it just a matter of kind of going for speed at any cost, or should we be looking at authenticity? And I really hope that most marketers are going to gravitate towards authenticity and saying that's what's going to win in the market because it should. I mean, that's going
Yeah,
to be, probably where you're going to get more of that distinctness and the
right.
differentiation, which we're all gunning for and we're all trying to kind of find. I like your perspective on the brand guideline too, because
Yeah.
weirdly enough, I happen to be with a prospect this morning, and we were chatting about exactly that issue of saying, it's I believe that probably based on what you're also saying is that frankly our brand guidelines, and we've all either developed it or we all have them in our companies. And the funny thing is, many of my clients, when I kind of work with them or start working with them, I'll usually ask and say, "Hey, have you got a brand guideline? Can you show it to me, et cetera? Send it over to me." And inevitably, the answer is, "Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, I've got it here someplace. We developed this 6 years ago." And you can almost visualize in your mind that they're dusting off a bookshelf and they found the old book, and it
Yeah.
kind of creaks when you open it, and they send it over to me. And I believe what we're saying here is, in fact, maybe the brand guideline. This is a rejuvenation of that because that's going to
Right.
be an important part of sticking that into your AI and saying, hey, look, when you
Yeah.
develop something for me, take this
Use
into
this.
account and
Yeah.
stick with it and bring us back to this. Um,
That's right.
and then when we make changes, we make it strategically. We decide that, you know what, it's now yellow because we decided it's yellow, not because it kind of
Yeah.
evolved in that direction and whoops, we forgot. Yeah.
100%. But back to the experience thing. It's the experience of a marketer who will make sure that a company has it. You just mentioned it. Companies are dusting it off. They're forgetting that they have it. And how many times do I come across a company that doesn't even have one, right? So, I mean,
Yeah.
just experience will dictate that, these things are all done. The checklist for these things have been accomplished, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's
experience
fantastic.
matters.
That's good. So we're moving from AI that helps kind of create content to AI that actually triggers workflows, they trigger decisions, they're taking actions, right? So the
Right.
AI agent world, there's a lot of chatter about agentic AI. I think that's still in the future, a couple of years away, whatever. But we're definitely kind of going down this path. What changes when AI moves from support to execution? What do you think?
Danger? Danger
Danger.
will
Okay,
rise. Yeah,
good
absolutely.
answer. Why?
And the reason why, okay, I've had some experiences where AI has tried to communicate with me and it hasn't
Yes.
identified itself as AI. And the moment I
Uh-huh.
realize that it's an AI trying to book an appointment for me on the phone, I am
Uh,
deeply offended. And,
yes.
and that's happened to me a couple of times already. So we're still
Yeah.
humans. And last that I checked, we still like to deal with humans and we don't appreciate being spoken to from an AI point of view. And it's a
Yes.
whole maybe other conversation on why that is.
Mhm.
But I just know the
Mhm.
feeling that I get when I feel like
Mhm.
AI. We have to be very careful with also content is put out there now. Because if I'm reading a blog from a company, okay, and
Yes.
that and I know, let's say whether I detect it or not, but I find out that the entire thing was written by AI. It devalues the content. You know what I mean?
It
Like it
does. It does.
and it's the same thing when AI starts to act on behalf of a company, either putting up messages, texts, or especially when it crosses the realm of trying to mimic being a human. And that's where
Mhm.
I know a lot of companies are starting to get into voice and use it for sales calls and
Yes.
appointment setting. And
Yeah.
I I don't ever think we'll get to the point where we're going to be comfortable with that unless we get into the world of Star Trek and there's a
Yeah.
character called Data and we're all like in love with the character and comfortable dealing with an entity that's AI, but it's a character. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
there's
And
some,
remember, I
yeah,
mean, data actually I think what endears us to data is he wants to be human, right?
right.
He's striving to become closer to human. And maybe that's the thing that we
You
all kind
see?
of like and want to
That's
hear.
right. It's a difference between the AI. Okay, we're gonna get into Star Trek nerd talk here. It's a difference between
Absolutely.
the AI on the Enterprise where, you're talking to the computer and you ask it a question, it gives you the answer. It's very impersonal, right? Data is personal because he's got a face, he's got a
Yes.
character, he's got a personality.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
AI has to achieve that in order for us
Yes.
to be comfortable with it. If it's a big machine that we're talking to or we're absorbing information from, it devalues the message, right? AI, in a
Yeah.
sense, is making our lives very convenient with what it can do, but it's devaluing a lot of things. It's devaluing education to a degree. Someone who's got a
Mhm.
5-year master's degree in European history, like people got those degrees and that education
Yeah.
because they had a depth of knowledge. Well, that knowledge really is at all of our fingertips now. When Google came out and we can get all that, we still had to do an enormous amount of reading. With
Mhm.
AI, we can zero in on a topic and have it read us a lecture over a period of half an hour and get all the meat and potatoes of what we're looking for. It's even
Yeah.
devalued to a certain degree programming, coding, software
Yeah.
companies, right? We've been
Yes.
building a software company for a number of years, have hundreds of thousands of lines of code.
Mhm.
Fast forward to today, there's no way we would have ever built the system the same way. We would have voice prompted a lot of the code to achieve what we wanted and would have done it in a fraction of the time. So we've taken 7 years of coding.
Mhm.
Now what
Mhm.
we're doing, and of course we're doing this, I'm not gonna, lie, every software company is doing this. I
Yes.
think about 80, 90% of our code is written by AI and
Right.
overseen by our development team. So in a sense,
Right.
devalued the code
Yep.
because a
Yep.
1,000 hours of coding can be done in 5 minutes with
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of things that are changing quickly.
This is a very powerful thing that you just said. This concept of devaluing, which is interesting. I mean, and maybe that's a domain of what we title responsible AI, and how do we kind of bring this technology into the into the real world without it devaluing everything. Although there are aspects which will be devalued, and so be it. But you're absolutely right, and it's kind of funny because I also had, as you were saying that, you were telling me that little story about how you didn't realize that it was an AI, and then you do at some point in time in your conversation. I've had the same feeling when I'm watching some kind of, whatever video is in my feed, whether it's on LinkedIn or whether it's on YouTube, et cetera. And I felt the same way. I felt personally kind of angry, and I'm sure that most of the population does too. When you didn't tell me up front that this is a cool AI video,
Yeah.
but you're kind of watching this almost under this, the premise that, oh, that's a real person talking, and then you realize, oh, the lips aren't moving quite right, or the eyes are flickering in a weird way, and it's like clearly not a person. And then
Oh,
you do get pretty pissed off because you're
yeah.
thinking, hey, this is AI slop, and that's not okay. And I think the reason I bring that up is because that is a really important part for us marketers, that
Yeah.
we are cognizant of this and say that is not responsible use of AI. That's actually a really foolish use of AI, because what that's going to do is that's going to devalue your brand, as you point out, right? That it basically means that people will just say these guys kind of cheated.
Right.
They didn't even make the effort. Look at that. They
Right.
just sort of plugged it into whatever nano banana or
Yeah.
something, and they got
Yeah.
something spit out.
Did McDonald's do an all AI video and they said it was AI, but they put it out and yeah, the community hated it. They pushed back on it and it was inauthentic and it was over the top for the sake of being over the top and it didn't connect. It
Yeah,
didn't,
yeah,
a lot of companies are going to make this mistake and
yeah.
this is kind of like the early days of AI now that it's kind of been
Yes.
available to everybody really for the last year or so. In the
Yeah.
old school web days, which I'm old enough to remember, like we would,
Hmm.
do the scrolling marquee and the blink tag and stuff because it just
Hmm.
animated things on the website and they
Hmm.
became like nails on a chalkboard for people viewing websites and the font is
Yes.
blinking and oh, they made it yellow. And just because we could
Yes.
do all those things with early HTML doesn't mean we should. And I think a
Hmm.
lot of people are
Hmm.
making that mistake with AI.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think as things start to evolve, again, I think the market is going to start paying more attention to the responsible applications.
Yeah.
And also, I think that's the big thing. And also kind of we'll kind of gravitate to a place where we do understand the synergy between what's the right thing for the human to be doing and
Yeah.
where is the AI augmentation coming from and stuff. So anyway, we look forward to a brighter future, that's for sure, which is
100%.
good. My next question to you: when companies start using AI inside of marketing automation systems, because
Mhm.
that's exactly what you do, they'll use it for segmentation, for journey maps, for
Yeah.
outreach, for decisioning, actually. So where do you think the biggest risk lies? Where's it going to pop up?
The biggest risk in anything like that, because we're actually, it's a very interesting point because we're actually looking at this, right? To take AI now and throw our database into a model that
Hmm.
understands all the data and can deliver answers to our customers who are using our application in ways that you really have to dig for it in the past. Okay. Problem is always going to be, and this is pre-AI and post-AI, is garbage in, garbage out. A lot of times, and I've gone into some fairly large organizations and said, show me your database, and names without companies, companies without email addresses, and fractured data. AI, probably better than humans, could probably start bridge some of the gaps in those areas with different technologies. However, it's still an effort and it might not be accurate. So with any system, whether you've written a really slick program or you're using AI, having a structured approach to getting your
Yeah.
data organized and fed into AI will yield a really, really good result. Just like it would if there was no AI and you're just putting in a very clean
Yeah.
database and you're able to get the information. So AI is going to be able to take really good data and deliver more with it, right? But it's
Hmm.
still on us to make sure that we've got a full gamut of information around our customer profiles, right? Around the
Yeah.
companies. And AI is going to do a great job of probably going in and ferreting out information out of that and probably making suggestions that humans probably couldn't do at the scale that AI could do it. But the
Yeah.
AI needs something to reference, and you don't want it to go and invent things because, as we all know, AI is sometimes really good at inventing stuff that just fills the gap. So you don't want to be doing a
Yep.
marketing campaign and it throws something in there that's not accurate. And of course, we all know what we feel like when someone gets our name wrong, especially in front of a group of people. So when AI is addressing something that's not relevant to you, when it's pretending that it is, you're going to lose customers. You're going to lose opportunities because you're offending people with sloppy data, sloppy
Yeah.
organization. and the AI is
Yeah, at the end of
trying to do its best.
Yeah, I agree, and it's kind of funny that we had a conversation with Kama's CEO the other day, and we were talking about accountability, and that's a really big factor in AI, and in both AI and responsible AI specifically. At the end of the day, it still does come back to the human. I think I was teaching one lecture, and I had mentioned, I said, if you use AI blindly and you just take whatever it gives you and just throw it up on your website or hand it to me as one of the papers that you claim to have written. And if there's a problem with it, if it's wrong or something, I mentioned to the students, I said, who do you think your boss is going to fire? Is it going to fire ChatGPT or Gemini or whichever tool you used, or is he or she going to fire you?
That's right.
And that famous case came up about what was it? I think it was the Chicago Tribune a couple of years, no, not a couple of years ago, just last summer, where the one of their journalists had basically used AI and didn't double check the references, and it
That's
popped up a
ridiculous.
whole bunch of authors saying, here's a top 10 with a number of books that these authors did not write,
Yeah,
which was like, a little bit embarrassing. But again, that's a
yeah.
perfect example of,
Yeah, the
well,
credibility shot.
that, yeah, the editor is going to go after the author and say, what did you do here? And yeah, you can't just blame AI for it, right? So there is that element of accountability.
Yeah.
Good. Last question for you, Craig. In systems like SmartDesk, why is sovereign AI a big thing? Why is sovereign data? Does that really matter? And should enterprises be caring about this? Should they be thinking about where is my AI that's running this, and where's my
I'm
data? Does that matter?
going to give you a yes and no answer. And the
Okay.
reason is, for the most part, we've given up a lot of our privacy with the advancement of just technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
The simple fact that you have a mobile phone in your pocket everywhere you go has violated your autonomy in so many different ways. So we're slowly accepting more and more kind of governments and intrusion into our lives, to the point now, and this was a debate a while ago, I don't think it's much of a debate anymore. It's like you're having a conversation with your friend, your phone is right by your side, and then you're getting ads on things that you only spoke about that one time. So it's creeping in a lot of ways. So your data, no matter how you interact with it, what you browse on the internet, your shopping habits, what you're purchasing on Amazon, like all of these things are being fed into a big model. And of course, now it's being fed into a big AI brain. That's inevitable. Okay. Now, the sovereignty part of this question is, well, if Canada is getting my data or the US is getting my data, does it matter? So I'll look at it and say, okay, well, if the government of Canada is now doing some kind of profiling on my company and they're getting data because our databases are in Canada and they're going into our cloud in Canada and getting it, does that make me any more comfortable than the Americans going in there and doing the same
Mm-hmm.
thing? Both of them make
Mm-hmm.
me uncomfortable to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the sovereignty part really depends on, I would say, the tier of company. If you're in the defense and missile systems and NORAD, and okay, the sovereignty is so massively important. It's not even a point of contention. For most companies out there, you got to say to yourself, are you comfortable with your data being fed to other people? Because it's going to be. The
Mm-hmm.
sovereignty part really depends, I think, on the industry you're in, the trade secrets you might be exposing with some of this data, the privacy concerns you might be having with some of the conversations with client data, and how it will affect whether that data gets, pushed to an American agency or a Canadian agency.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's so many lines going from different places. Like you could have a data center in Canada, but the file repository system where the documents are stored are in a US Amazon, cloud environment. And now
Yeah.
AI can read Word documents and it can read JPEGs and
Yep.
it can read PDF
Yep.
documents. So all of your documents are in a US data storage area, but all of your database content is in a Canadian storage center. So, the lines are being crossed so much. So the sovereignty is important. I think we all like to know that our data is in Canada as Canadians, and I think
Yes.
Americans
Right.
like to feel the same thing. I think you have to do a self-analysis with the organization and then find out
Yeah.
if the company can truly offer you the levels of protection that you're looking for based on what your needs are. Now, as a company, we're looking into this. So we're
Yeah.
part of a cloud storage system, of course,
Mm-hmm.
for us. We can roll up data centers in Singapore, United States, of
Mm-hmm.
course, Canada, different parts of Canada if we have to. So, we can address those issues with our customers to say, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
your data is being stored in an American data center, but where that data travels, like I heard, there's lines that go all over the world, and I don't know where that
Yes.
information get intercepted. So sure, yes, sovereignty
Long
is
story short, it's a complicated world now, isn't it?
it's
Okay.
not
Yeah.
an easy. You could do the best that you can
Yeah.
with the information that you have,
Yeah.
and the most part, I think that will, get a lot of people out of trouble. But, in all of this, I think there's going to be some big AI brain in 20 years from now that sucks up all the data and spits it out. So it's hard to say.
It will be interesting to watch for sure. That's good. Well, Craig, listen, thank you so much for this look under the hood of marketing. So that was exciting. I certainly love it. I like the insights about the kind of the practical uses of AI in marketing. We talked about human in the loop, automation, something about the enterprise systems, the sovereign AI. That was good. You also helped us kind of better understand why responsible AI and governance and sovereignty matter, even though it's a complex subject and a little bit of a spaghetti, I suppose, because it is a spaghetti cycle there. Then
Right.
as this technology becomes more and more powerful, these are important conversations to be having and considerations, certainly at the enterprise level and companies overall. Craig, again, thank you. Craig Poulton is the CEO and founder of SmartDeskCRM, a Canadian marketing automation and CRM developer. That wraps another episode of Responsible AI in Action. In each conversation, we speak with leaders across the AI industry and those working on enterprise transformation to explore what's actually working. We look at what's working, what's not working, and how to deploy AI responsibly in the real world. Thank you again to the audience for joining us. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Responsible AI in Action.